Hey everyone, it's Marco Brown with Brown Law, and here today talking with Aaron Gwilliam about workers' compensation. We're just having a conversation about workers' comp and how Aaron sets things up and what the process is for that, and then how it relates to divorce as well. So, Aaron, thanks for being here, man.
You bet. Thanks for having me. It should be fun.
Yeah. Now, Aaron and I are friends, and we have been for a while, but I haven't seen you for a good time,
yeah,
just like I haven't seen anybody.
right. We're just each living our best quarantine life right now.
Exactly. So tell us a little bit about your family, about how quarantine's going.
Sure. So I've got two boys that are they're twins. They're 14, and then a 9-year-old daughter and a 6-year-old boy. And
I didn't realize the twins were that old.
yeah, I'm like a prematurely old man. Um, so the twins are pretty much hating life. Their life is now reduced to a quarter acre,
Yeah,
and it's tough. And we've been pretty strict. Our kids haven't been out with other kids, and yet some people in the neighborhood, they're out playing and hanging out and having fun
yeah,
with their friends, and so it's hard. They don't understand that so much, but it's good just getting their schoolwork done. Usually it takes several months for our yard to look nice, and it's already looking nice. So that's one of the
because you're
benefits,
because you're working on it.
because we're putting them to work. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're a better man
So
than I am. I refuse to do yard work.
I've learned
Not
I've
my
learned to
thing.
like it over the years. The problem is, you grew up in Alaska. I grew up in northern British Columbia, and we call that God's country is what we call that, and
Hmm.
that area. And you don't have to irrigate anything, and so dealing with
That's true.
sprinklers and stuff like that, I refuse to learn how to do sprinklers. It's
Yeah.
annoying.
Well, good for you. I just refuse to learn how to do lawns in general because in Alaska, what was the point, right?
Right, right.
We had
You,
grass, but who
grass,
cared?
yeah, moose come and munch on it.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
yeah.
Well, that's good. So you're a big baseball family.
Hmm.
How are
Yeah,
the 14-year-olds are in baseball, right? They're
yeah,
big into it.
yeah. We play baseball, too much baseball. So this has actually been a little nice, but yeah, it's all shut down. So they play
Were they
catch with each
playing?
other at home.
Were they playing in a league before everything got
Uh,
shut down?
we played in a couple of tournaments. One in one in St. George, and then we were actually in Phoenix for a tournament, uh, and we're there for spring training, MLB games as well. And that's when everything like hit the fan, and
Yeah,
so we didn't. So that spring training games got canceled, tournament got canceled. We were there for about 14 hours and came home.
came home. Oh,
Hmm.
man, hopefully we get
Yeah,
through this. Hopefully we get through this quick. Okay.
yeah,
So how are things going at the office? You guys are still open. You're still helping people.
yeah. We're not taking any in-person consultations. We do everything over the phone, which we've always been happy to do over the phone consults. I think honestly the hardest thing is pre COVID-19. We do a phone consultation and then essentially follow that up with an in-person consultation where you covered a lot of the
Hmm.
same ground. And so we're trying to really streamline that and improve that so it doesn't turn into multiple phone calls trying to round up the same information and the same stuff. I'm assuming it's probably similar for your office as well.
Yeah. I didn't do the phone calls at the beginning. Phone calls are not great when it comes to divorce. You kind of want to be face to face, or I do because I just
Hmm.
interact better with people face to face.
Hmm.
So, and unless somebody lived outside of Utah, I had them
Right.
come into the office.
Right.
and just did the face-to-face with them right there. And then we call afterward, and we could do things over the internet and whatnot, but I never
Right.
did the initial phone call.
Hmm. Yeah, because they often turn into an initial consultation in person right after that.
Yeah.
So, and it's hard to get documents and do all of that, especially when some clients aren't overly tech savvy or don't have internet access or whatever. It makes it a little more difficult for sure.
Yeah. So you do the initial phone call, and that usually lasts what, like 15 minutes?
Usually a little bit longer, but yeah, just to get the basic facts down and figure out whether they need an attorney to help them with their workers' comp claim or not. Um, so it's kind of a sifting process. There's a lot of work accidents in Utah, anywhere, but a lot of them are just accepted by the insurance company. Though, I'm working at Roos Chris, throwing that out there because I know you like all things
Love,
Roos Chris,
love me some
and
Ruth's
so,
Chris.
I'm cutting up some potatoes, and you cut your hand and you get stitches. That's it's just a simple workers' comp claim. It gets accepted and people move on. We only really deal with claims that have been denied by the insurance company, and so that's a lot of our consults are determining where the case is, whether it's been accepted or denied, things
Oh,
like
okay.
that.
Okay. So
Yeah.
workers' comp, I mean, for people who are watching this and don't really know, since we're highlighting it, workers'
Right.
compensation is just injuries on the job, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Injuries on the job, which, you don't have to physically be on the job, right? I mean, there's a lot of, people, in their work trucks driving somewhere to a project or whatever and getting car accidents, things like that. It's really, in the course and scope of your employment.
So I always wondered this, because I think every state tends to have a little bit different laws. But if you're driving to work or driving from work, but not actually on the clock, but driving
Hmm.
to do it, that isn't considered a work accident, right? So if you're driving into work and you get
Yeah.
hit and T-boned, that's just a personal injury accident, not a workers' comp accident, right?
Yeah. Commuting's not covered. Um, there's a bunch of cases that go into all of that, but if
Mm.
I'm leaving directly from my house to you know to a job site without going into the office, and then it depends. But if you're just
Mm.
driving into your office and you get nailed by someone, for sure, that's just a
Okay.
normal negligence claim.
But if you're in the office and then you drive to like a company lunch or something like that, that's going to be covered, right? Because that's in the
Yeah.
course and scope of the
Hmm.
job.
Hmm.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I had heard about, and we could trade war stories all day, but I heard about one case. Where did this happen? I think this happened in Washington State. And this is totally salacious. This guy is on a work trip,
Uh-huh.
and he picks himself up a partner for the night and has
Mm.
a heart attack in the throes. And then
Right.
and then his family,
Uh.
the estate files a workers' comp claim or something. I mean, it was something like that after he died, and
Mm.
Washington State actually upheld it. I was surprised,
Mm.
but I just don't do, I don't do workers' comp, and then I don't do stuff in Washington. But I heard
Right.
some attorneys up there laughing about it.
That's it. That's interesting.
Yeah.
That'd be. I mean, if he's, yeah. I mean, if you're at the hotel paid for by the company on a company trip, there's a similar case actually where a group of individuals were on a deck drinking. They all were at a convention for their employer, and the deck gave way and they fell, and a couple of them actually died. And
Hmm.
they said, yeah, drinking at the hotel after the expo or whatever it was they were at is a work activity.
Interesting.
So,
So how does so people kind of understand the difference between the two? There's workers' compensation, which are accidents on the job in the course and scope. And then
hmm.
there are normal personal injury claims.
Hmm.
So if you have a workers' comp claim for an injury on the job, then you can't sue the employer for personal injury, right?
Correct. Yeah. So workers' comp is a no fault insurance. It doesn't matter if you were negligent or if someone else at the workplace was. If it happens at work, you're in the workers' comp system, and it's very, very difficult to get out of it. Um, it's nice if you can, because then in workers' comp you get no there's no money for pain and suffering or loss of enjoyment of life or any of those damages that you get in a personal injury case. And so um, if you can somehow get it out of workers' comp into personal injury, then that's great. But it's almost impossible to do that in a workplace setting. Some cases have both, where you are, at work and you are hit by someone else on the freeway, right? So if Marco, you've got a divorce hearing down at the courthouse, and some moron runs into you on the street as you're crossing the street there. You're at work, but you also have a third party now that should be responsible for those damages. So in that situation, your workers' comp coverage would pay for the medical bills, pay for everything, but would retain the right to subrogate against anything you got from the third party.
Okay. And subrogate is just to get back, to kind of claw back from that third party.
Right. And maybe using you as an example might not be perfect, because owners of businesses are you actually don't have to carry workers' comp insurance for an owner of a business, only employees.
Yeah, that's true. So you could have a workers' comp claim simultaneous with a third party personal injury claim.
Mm-hmm.
But the workers' comp claim, they're going to get their money out of the personal injury settlement.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Interesting. How often do you deal with that as opposed to just normal, like, straight workers' comp injury at a job?
Not a whole lot, because not it doesn't happen as much as you would think. Oftentimes clients would like to pursue something like that, and sometimes it's more of a premises liability case, slipping on ice. On you're running an errand for your boss and you slip it on ice as you're meeting Michael Scott at Chili's to do business or whatever. um, and so we'll often send those out to other folks to evaluate that. Same with like a product defect. You're working in some manufacturing setting and something broke, and to see if it's someone else's fault. Those are all types of third party cases, but we only deal with the workers' comp issues. And that's all we do. 100% of our practice is devoted to that. So we'd send those out to other competent attorneys where they can really evaluate whether that's worth pursuing or not.
Cool. Okay. And you said you just did 100% workers' comp. Tell us about your team over there.
Sure.
Who do you have working with you?
Yeah, we have the dream team of workers' comp. So there's me, which is probably the weakest member of the team. I've been doing workers' comp since 2011. And then we have Danny Vazquez. Danny joined us in last October 2019. And he was working for Workers' Compensation Fund, which is so he was defending workers' comp claims. He saw the light, repented, and then came over to do the good side of things.
And to make some money, right?
And to make some money, yeah. So he does that. So he's there. Danny is actually from Miami, and his parents are both Cuban. So he's more or less a native Spanish speaker as well, so that's helpful. I speak Korean, and that's pretty much useless here in Utah. So we got Danny, and then we have the other key member of our team is Tara, who's our paralegal, and she really just keeps us straight and keeps things organized and moving for us.
Yeah. So does Tara put together the medical documents and the demand and packages or whatever you call them over there?
Yeah, we don't really do like a demand letter because
that's more of a personal injury.
Yeah, everything we do is 100% litigation. So we file every case we're on. So she does a lot of discovery and medical records and all of that stuff. A lot of behind the scenes stuff.
Interesting. So talk to us about the process. Well, actually, before we get to that, how do people actually find you? Like where do people come from to get injured, and then how do they find you to help them out?
Yeah, oftentimes just from good friends who are personal injury attorneys. They'll refer people over. They're not interested in doing workers' comp, and so they'll send folks over to us to help out on the cases. We've got some good friends that will do that for us. Sometimes healthcare providers will oftentimes tell someone to get an attorney. Just after the workers' comp claim has been denied, sometimes the treating physician will get indignant and directly, say, "Hey, this is ridiculous. Go find an attorney and sue them." And so,
and they're denying them because they say they aren't actually injured, or what?
Yeah, so that the accident actually didn't cause the injury is the most. So a medical causation issue is what we fight most of the time. Sometimes there's a question of whether they were at work or not, or whether they were actually an employee. Insurance companies love that terrible defense. The law is very broad, and so you're usually an employee, even if you're 1099. Whose tools are you using? Whose car did you have? Could you show up when you wanted to? All of those things, and you're usually an employee. So anyway, yeah, people find us online or through just different friends that thankfully send us cases. Is really how we operate.
Great. Okay. And then do you advertise too? I know you do a little bit. So.
Yeah, I do. And I think I'm probably like, I would have worn a nicer shirt had I known we were doing this today, but it's all right.
It's the age of COVID. As long as we have pants on, it's okay.
Yeah, well, we haven't even established that yet. So I feel like I'm probably like a lot of attorneys where I've tried all sorts of different avenues of advertising and probably wasted a lot of money doing that. I've used FindLaw before, which I think is a common mistake, a rookie mistake. Somehow they know when you go out on your own or something, they know, and they try to sell you stuff. I've used that.
I fell for the same thing.
Yeah, yeah, and it's expensive. I've used Avo. I've used pay-per-click ads as well. And so basically, directories, I keep trying to keep a decent website up, those sorts of things. I'm becoming more and more convinced, though, that just having good relationships and good friends with people that are looking out for you, those are by far the best sources for cases. And just having friends is just being a decent human being pays off exponentially, and it compounds over time.
Yeah, that personal network is the way you end up helping people. Yeah. Cool. All right. Do you not use Avo anymore?
No, I actually do. I still pay for Avo, it's here's my take on all of this marketing stuff. The way I feel about Avo, fine law, some of those things, if you're in sort of a less competitive area of law, meaning subject matter and also geographically, then I think it could possibly work for you.
Yeah.
But it's so watered down for personal injury, divorce, even workers' comp. There's 30, everyone's got a 10 out of 10 AVO rating and has
Yeah.
gamed the system. So now there's no differentiation at all between anyone else out there, is sort of how I feel. I don't know if that's right. It's just a feeling that I have.
I feel the same way. And for those who don't know what Avo is, Avo is they advertise and they essentially aggregate people who need help from attorneys and try to help them find attorneys to go to. And then of course they make attorneys pay for the privilege of being on there and trying to get clients. And it used to be good, and now, like you just said, it's a super crowded channel. So there's just no reason. I used to I used to advertise with them, and they're always good, and then they just kept diluting what they were doing. So I would buy space, and then they would say, "Oh, well, we just diluted this, so now you have 5 people competing for the same thing that you were paying X amount of dollars for last month. So it's just we get 5 times the revenue, and you get to compete with 4 other people on this, all paying the same stuff." And I thought, all right, we're done with that.
Yeah, and I think Avo, they started out hot and then got bought by, I can't remember who it was. Was it Lexus
Martindale
or
Hubble?
Martindale Hubble, and then it just went the way of Martindale Hubble.
Yeah, everything those guys touch is
it just got yeah. So I don't know, what do you think, Mark? I mean, for me, I think it's really about just personal relationships.
Yeah, that's the vast majority of it. Is I talk to attorneys that are really out there doing well, helping people, even big PI firms, personal injury firms that spend $1 million, $2 million, $5 million on advertising a year. They're still getting the majority of their cases through personal contacts, right, and personal networks, just people they know, clients they've helped in the past, they've kept in touch with. It's still a majority coming through that, and that's the cheapest way to get new clients and help them, and it's also the most lasting.
Yeah, and I think as attorneys, especially in our setting where we're kind of storefront law, you know, you doing divorce, you're now the family physician. You know, people are going to come back to you if they have a will or a trust, and you don't do that, but you can at least refer them out to people that you know and trust. And so, you know, it's the same way. Someone comes in here, they've got one issue. We only deal with workers' comp, but they're still calling me again in 5 years when their kid's in jail or whatever it is, because I'm the first brush they've had with the legal system. And so they just, you know, we're like the PCP of law. You know, if you're a defense attorney, I think it's a little bit different. You know, if you're working at a big law firm, I think it still can be different, but relationships are relationships.
Yeah, they totally are. And people come back to attorneys that took good care of them, and they say, "Hey, I know you don't do this, but can you send somebody to?" I give, I mean, tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars out a year to friends and attorneys that I trust, because we only do one thing.
Right.
We just do divorce, and then I just send them out to all excellent attorneys. But yeah, tons of people come back to us because we're the only point of contact, right? And they don't know anybody else. They trust us.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
Cool. So how does oh, sorry, go on.
I was just going to say, and it's just about taking care of your clients, and they're also a huge referral source. You know, when this virus thing came out, you know, we contacted all of our clients on the phone, not a text message, not an email, that you know, blind carbon copy as many people as your email server will let you. but a phone call, how is everything doing? How's your family? How's work? What's going on? Just to check in with them, and people are appreciative of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just take
Yeah,
good care of people.
yeah, that's a huge thing. So I always talk about this when people come into my office and talk to me about divorce, is how do you communicate? And we
Hmm.
communicate a ton.
Yeah, I
So
know you do some, I've heard you talk about it. You do like a once a week, everyone gets a phone call from you, or
at least once a week. So every
yeah.
Friday, all the attorneys call all of their clients. So if they talked on a Tuesday, they talk again on a Friday.
Mm.
And then on
So
Wednesday,
even if you talk to them earlier in the week, they still get a call on Friday.
yep, yep,
Hmm.
they get a call every Friday. And then on Wednesday, the paralegal sends texts to every client asking how they're doing, asking if they have any questions. So they're at least getting contacted every Wednesday and every Friday.
Yeah, that's awesome. And that's got to take up a good chunk of your time, because I know you run a lot of cases.
Yeah, it takes time. I actually cap the number of clients an attorney can have, specifically to be able to allow them to do that.
Hmm.
So essentially Friday, and I've just told, this is the way we've worked it for a while now. We don't do any hearings or mediations on Fridays at all. That's an admin day. So we meet as a team, we
Hmm.
talk through the cases, and then everybody calls their clients. And the other 4 days of the week, we're in court or we're doing mediations or
Hmm.
doing whatever. But the only way that
Yeah,
works is if we keep the number relatively low compared to
right.
most attorneys. I mean, most divorce attorneys have 50, 60, 80, 90 clients, right?
Hmm.
And they don't even
Hmm.
remember their names. So
Right.
I cap it
Yeah.
way low.
Yeah. Yeah. I won't mention names, but it's when I was doing, because I used to do divorce cases a while back, and that awkward moment out in the hallway of the Matheson courthouse where you've got somebody say, Jim, Bob, is
Yeah,
that you?
yeah,
And
they've
no,
never.
no. It's
Yep.
like, how do you not know your that's crazy.
They literally don't know their clients,
Yeah. And if I see
clients'
that
names.
lawyer and I'm against that guy, I know I'm going to mop the floor with him.
Yeah, it happens all the time. Like I've seen that. I've seen that at least 100 times as I've gone to court, just kind of yelling people's names outside, trying to find their client.
Right. I mean, I understand if you're a collection attorney and you got 50 cases that day, but I mean, not if someone's paying you. Should never
Yeah.
happen.
I know one specific divorce attorney down in Provo who will go unnamed. This attorney has at any given time between 400 and 500 open case files.
Wow.
Now, of course, 450. If there are 500, 450 are really not active, then
Right.
just the paperwork hasn't been done,
Yeah.
but they're still sitting around or some crazy thing
Hmm.
like that. But yeah,
Right.
that was the number
It's
from a really good,
dangerous.
reliable source. And I thought, oh, that's just malpractice waiting to happen.
Yeah, it's dangerous. Yeah.
So
Yeah. That's not good. Not good
yeah.
at all.
So take us through how workers' comp functions. I mean, so
Hmm.
you meet with somebody, they've denied a claim, and then you go straight into litigation. You just file it, and then where does it
Yep.
go from there?
Sure. So everything that we do runs through the Utah Labor Commission. So it's administrative law, for
So it's not
better
a
or worse.
court, right? It's an
It's
administrative agency.
yeah, it's not a district court case. So there are administrative law judges that are assigned. So every case north of I-70 is filed in Salt Lake. Every case south of I-70 is in St. George. And there's
And
one ALJ in St. George and 4 up here in Salt Lake.
do you guys work down in St. George as well as up
Yeah,
here?
all the time. All the
Okay.
time. I mean, there are pockets of cases around the state, right? Obviously, Weber, Davis, Salt Lake, Utah County, we see get a lot. But then you've got, out in the basin, out in Vernal, you always have some oil and gas related
Yeah.
accident. And then you
Yeah.
go down to, Price, Huntington, Salina, Richfield. You always got some mining case going on down there. And then, and then obviously down in St. George, it's mostly just construction or healthcare related cases. But anyway, so Yeah, client comes in, we file with the Labor Commission, and then they take a few weeks to process the claim. They actually send it out to the employer and the insurance company, so we don't have to serve people. The documents, or hire a constable. Some of these, Walmart, it'd be really annoying to have to do that anyway. But people do it in a civil court setting, a district court setting. So, and then once that order for answer goes out, they have 30 days to respond, and then things really kick into high gear. As soon as an answer is filing, we have a hearing date, and it's usually 3 to 4 months away.
Really?
So,
So
yeah,
you gotta get
4 to 5
jammed on
months. Right. So if you want to do some discovery, you better get it going.
And a hearing's
Quick.
like a trial, right?
Yeah, hearing's a trial. The only difference really is the rules of evidence are a little more slack. They exist, but they're not as stringent. So, for example, medical records are just admitted. There's no question about it. You don't have, which is nice, because most good attorneys would just stipulate to those things anyway before a district court case.
Yeah.
But you don't have to sit there and spend 20 minutes laying a foundation for all of this nonsense that no one cares about. And so you just kind of stop wasting the judge's time, and you get to the point, and so that's nice. So hearings are generally shorter in time, and it usually takes less time to actually get in front of a judge. There are no juries. I wish there were. I think it'd be awesome. But
yeah, ALJs are always administrative law judges are always difficult.
Yeah, and but we're really only there to talk about indemnity benefits, and so again, there really wouldn't be a lot of work for a jury to do. It's third grade math. Okay, you missed 4 months of work. What's 2/3 of your wage for 4 months? Okay, well, that's what you get. There you go. So that is the process. And then, of course, if there's a medical issue, the ALJ will send it to a medical panel, which is, they're paid for by the state, by your tax dollars, and they will meet with the client, review all the medical records, and recommend to the administrative law judge what medical treatment was necessary, what symptoms or injuries are actually related to that accident. Those sorts of things get resolved by a medical panel that make a recommendation to the judge, which the judge almost always accepts, and then we'll make findings and an order. And then, of course, you have to exhaust your administrative remedies before before you go to the Court of Appeals. So there's an internal review system that you have to go through before you can file anything with the Court of Appeals. So that's a overview.
So when you started, they have 30 days to respond to it. They're going to deny liability. And then you have 3-4 months before you get to a hearing. And in that time, that's when you're putting together the medical records. That's when you're asking questions, doing depositions, like getting people, sitting them down and asking them formal questions about the incident and how things happen.
Yeah, I will almost always get discovery requests on the same day that they file an answer.
Okay. And discovery requests are things that you're supposed to give them. So they're asking you questions and they want you to answer.
Yeah. And so, it is. And so because of that, you want to have most of your case sort of ready to go before you even file it.
Okay.
So it's not a file and then scramble to prove your case. You sort of have to do more work on the front end.
Yeah. So and that's always interesting, because before I was a divorce attorney, I did some personal injury work, and it took forever to get medical records. But I'm assuming with this system, like, medical records are pretty forthcoming. It's easier to get them than it is in just a normal personal injury case.
Yeah, in a couple of ways. One is you have we under the administrative law rules, we have an obligation to share basically and to play
Yeah.
nice, I guess. Um, but also, if you're in the workers' comp system, you actually have a statutory right to go pick up your records at no cost.
Oh, okay. All
So,
right.
so you
Which is
can,
nice
so
because
our clients can go pick them up oftentimes.
yeah, some of those doctors I've had places, even in divorce, we have to go get medical records
Hmm.
sometimes, and they're charging
Yeah.
like $2 a page for
Oh yeah,
medical
it's
records.
ridiculous. It's
So,
it's obnoxious. Or you're having to subpoena them and waste your client's
mhm.
time and money and subpoenaing them, and then they still don't cough them out. Yeah, it's annoying.
Yeah. Okay. So you get those a lot quicker than
Hmm.
normal, and then you just share them with each other, and you go to the hearing. The
Hmm.
hearing, like you said, doesn't have juries.
Hmm.
Do you still go to the hearing physically, or do you do it over the phone most of the time?
Not right now.
No, yeah, you're not
But
going there. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. There, at the Heber Wells building downtown is where the Labor Commission is, and there's 3 courtrooms there. And yeah, we'll go have hearings, call witnesses. They're under oath. You know, do exhibits, all of that, just like a normal trial. So yeah,
You ever get
absolutely.
doctors in there to cross-examine them?
No, because all the medical records are just in, and
Hmm.
so uh, oftentimes which is nice again because uh, you know when someone gets hurt on the job, like life is really messed up for these people, and the case is denied. They're not working. uh, it's very similar to where we are right now. Not
Yeah, so
working,
no income.
no income, and they're not getting medical treatment either unless they're unless they have health insurance. But oftentimes that takes a long time because insurance companies are wholly owned subsidiaries of Satan that actually, you know, to for them to stop pointing fingers to each other at each other
Yeah.
to get your private health insurance on. And so yeah, so these people are sitting in pain, bills going unpaid, getting depressed, sitting at home. And so the bias is really sort of towards getting these cases resolved quickly. So because we know the treating physician isn't going to get called in because the medical records are just in, we'll often ask for an opinion as to causation, what caused what treatment was reasonable, all of that. And so medical doctors and then defense will have their uh, medical evaluator also give a report that says, our clients are liars and
Hmm.
are, all pre pre-existing conditions attributed 100% to the fact that, their leg fell off at work. So
Yeah, because they're
go
bought they
figure.
bought and paid for these
Hmm.
evaluators essentially. That's how these evaluators who do this stuff, that's kind of how they make the vast majority of their money, is what I remember.
Yeah, and some of them, that's all they do
Yeah.
is these defense exams. So
So they have a vested interest in telling their clients what they want to hear.
right, there's a lot of independence on the independent medical evaluation. So
All right. So a lot of times you'll have kind of dueling experts, right? You have the physician
hmm
who gives a causation. Yes, this caused this, and this was reasonable.
hmm
Then you have the
hmm
independent from a medical evaluator from their side that comes in and says opposite. And then
right,
how do you deal with that? I imagine that happens in
sure.
pretty much every case. So how do you deal with it when you're at a hearing?
The way we deal with this, and not everyone does. Um, First off, frontline treating physicians, they are not, like, for example, an emergency room doctor doesn't care how the injury happened. They're just there to fix you up. And
Hmm.
so it's always a little bit difficult, especially, treating, physician, a surgeon, they're not necessarily concerned with, whether you were at work or how heavy was the box you were lifting that caused your back injury. And
Yeah.
um, so these independent medical evaluations will oftentimes say, well, the treating physician didn't have all. I reviewed 600 pages of medical records, and they didn't have these. And you know, of course, lifting the 300-pound quadriplegic patient that fell off of his bed didn't cause the back injury. It was, rolling over in bed at night that caused it.
5 years ago, right?
True story,
Yeah.
And so, so what we will often do though, is we'll get an opinion from the treating physician, but we will also pay to have an evaluator as well, offer a rebuttal to their expert. So we'd hire our own expert essentially. Again, I love good doctors who become indignant and hate workers' comp, and they get angry, and those are the best reports ever, because they just want to see the world burn at that point in time, and give us amazing letters and call out, defense hack doctors for being unscrupulous and things like that. So those are always the best ones.
That's great. So who's footing that bill then for the rebuttal expert?
Sure, it was a litigation cost. So I mean, ultimately, if we win, it comes out of the recovery. We're reimbursed for that.
So you're talking with your clients and you say, hey, I think this is necessary. Let's go get this done. It's going to come out of your income when you get it back from workers' comp, but it's worth it. Yeah,
exactly. But it is worth it. I mean, I don't know. It's probably similar to you in divorce, where you've got some medical issues and you probably have lots of examples as to parenting and whatnot. And you've seen it done both ways, I'm sure, that, one party thinks their opinion is going to matter and the judge is going to believe them and they're going to be vindicated, and the other party spent $700 to have someone show up and say, this guy's crazy, he shouldn't have his kids or whatever. I don't know. You can probably have better examples than that, but
custody evaluators are the big ones for us, and whether that goes well, but that's a third party expert coming in and telling the judge, making an entire evaluation of history and behavior, and then telling the judge what's going on. The judge really enjoys that. So same kind.
And like in our game, there's probably good and bad custody evaluators, or some that you prefer and some that do a better job than others. And so, we try to steer our folks towards them.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Well, cool. So that hearings almost always a day or half a day? How long do they last?
Half day usually. Usually we can get what we need done in that. Oftentimes we'll stipulate to a lot of the facts, right? How much wages, hours worked, all of that stuff should be figured out beforehand, so you're not wasting people's time. And we have tax info and pay stubs where usually that's not in question. So agree on those things before the hearing, present those quickly, and then get to the real issues at hand.
So when Danny was working for the dark side over there before he saw the light, did you have a lot of cases against Danny?
Yeah, we had 10, 20 cases together. Yeah.
Okay.
And Danny was always bright and fought hard, but he also has a good head on his shoulders, and he understood risk for his client at the time, and so it was always a pleasure to work with him, and we became friends through it, which I think, there's lots of examples probably that both of us can point to, that even though you're really sort of on the opposite side of the table, it doesn't mean you can't be friends. It doesn't mean you can't like the person. And in fact, oftentimes knowing and having a decent relationship with that attorney, your adversary, is going to take you a lot further than, being the stereotypical bulldog attorney who is stupid and just tries to burn the whole world down.
Yeah, I've always been of the opinion that, and I think it's borne out by the facts, that the the more people like you as an attorney, the better you are to your colleagues, the better you are to the judges, the
Mm-hmm.
ALJs, the commissioners in my world. Like the
Mm-hmm.
better you are to them,
Mm-hmm.
the better you are to the clerks at the court, just the better
Yeah.
your client does.
I think in
Not even close.
law school mandatory reading should be How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Yeah.
Should be mandatory reading. I'm making my kids read it while they're off of school and they hate me.
Oh, that's terrible. I read that book like 10 or 15 years ago, I think. Yeah.
Uh-huh. It's a little dated,
It
but
was, I mean, it's
the
good, but yeah,
principles last.
yeah, that's funny. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's so true though. And I think the best, I mean, I've had a lot of good trials against attorneys that I wasn't particularly fond of, but there's something about having a good relationship with the attorney, and you could just go at each other even harder at that point and
Hmm.
be okay with it. So that
Hmm.
like the best trials I think I've ever had were with attorneys where I respected them on the other side.
Hmm. Yeah, it's like if you were in athletics growing up or whatever, where you're just both going really hard and doing your very best, and that's what those were the best games.
Yeah. Yeah, that really does elevate stuff. Okay, cool. So you have the half day hearing, and then how quickly do you get a decision usually?
Not too quickly.
Not quickly. Okay.
Not quickly.
So
Yeah,
you get
it
to the
usually
hearing
takes.
quickly and then you don't get a
Yeah,
decision.
yeah. Usually it takes more time. The case goes quickly until that point in time, and then it slows down. So, um, by rule, by administrative law rule, they have to have a decision to us within 90 days.
Okay.
That doesn't mean that happens.
Is it always
But
closer to 90 than not though?
900 or
No, is it always closer to the 90th day than like the 0 day, or you're always pushing
it's
90 days?
well, first you've got to get into a medical panel, right? And so at least two doctors that are qualified to be on the panel have to be appointed. And so if you've got a tricky carbon monoxide poisoning case, or some difficult chemical exposure, you know with your lungs, or where you're requiring someone that's hyper specialized, then it's going to take a while to get into that medical panel.
Hmm.
And so months, and then
Mm.
you finally get in. Then they have to give their report, and then they give it to the ALJ, and then they do final findings. I mean, you're 6 months,
Oh
seven
man.
months.
Okay.
Yeah.
And all
So,
this time your client's just not getting paid.
I mean, and thankfully, most people. I mean, I always tell people, look, you got insurance, go get on and go get your rotator cuff tear fixed,
Hmm.
right? And get back to work as quick as you can, because people want to get back to work.
Hmm.
Um, I've never had anyone file a workers' comp claim who was like, "Oh yeah, that was a great experience. Sign me up for that again." People don't do that, but
Yeah.
insurance companies have done such a good job at making us the bad guys. At employees are lazy and they're trying to take advantage of the system. It's a bunch of nonsense,
Yeah.
and it I mean, it gets my blood boiling. No, people want to go to work, and they want to feed their family, and they want to go fishing on the weekend. That's what they want to do, and you're
Yeah.
ruining all of that.
Yeah.
So
I
let
think
the
I
man
think if
work.
I think if COVID has taught us anything, it's we want to get out of the house and go work.
Yeah, seriously. In fact, really, no one's been coming into the office, so I come in just to get out of get out of one, schooling kids and
Yeah.
everything else.
I do the same thing. I have to go in every day. Otherwise, I'm not sure I'd have family very long if I stayed home all the time. So I'm always in
Right,
the office
right,
just quarantining myself.
right. Yeah, dads have to know the rules of supply and demand, and too much dad. There's
Hmm.
only so much demand, and you cannot exceed that, or else everyone hates you.
That's exactly right. All right, so this will take a while to get the decision back, and then how does the award work? Like, how does payment work at that
Yeah.
point?
I mean, what we're really looking at is your wages. 2/3 of your wage at the time of the accident. It's capped statutorily at the average weekly wage in Utah at the time. So for 2020, it's $916 a week is the average weekly wage,
So that's
which
the
is,
cap, right?
yeah, it's capped at that. So if you're,
Okay.
Donovan Mitchell and you hurt yourself playing for the Jazz, you're not getting your million or 800,000 a week or whatever he gets. He's getting
Yeah.
$916 a week. So
Under
getting,
workers' comp, you may get it under the
yeah,
contract if you wrote it well,
right.
right? But under workers'
Yeah.
comp, you're capped at it.
Yeah.
Okay.
They have all their own insurance schemes anyway for people that are actually, it's crazy. But interestingly, a lot of minor league, like the Utah Grizzlies and stuff like that, they file workers' comp claims all the time.
Oh, do they?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's funny. Have you ever had one of those cases?
Don Atkin here in town does almost all of those cases.
Oh,
but can you imagine,
that's too
you
bad.
get your teeth punched in because you're in a fight on the ice and, your new teeth are covered under workers' comp.
Oh, that's
So,
great.
yeah. So anyway, so you're looking at, your time off of work, money for what we call permanent partial disability, and that is based off of an impairment rating. So the loss of function, if you're based, if you hurt your shoulder based on flexation or how much you can lift, things like that. So if you have a permanent function loss, then you're qualified for some money to pay for the damage done to your body for that. Medical bills, out of pocket costs, all of that stuff with interest is calculated.
And this gets the permanent loss portion of this gets really super specific, right? Like if you lose one finger on a left hand or on a dominant hand as opposed to a non-dominant hand, it's like a different amount, isn't it?
Yeah, no, not actually, not for not for hands, no, but it's all in Utah Code 34A 106. If you want to see how much your body parts are worth, just it's all in the code. For arms, legs, hands, fingers, toes, teeth, all of that, hearing loss, blindness. Our lawmakers are determining how much we're worth, our body parts are worth, which is a little scary.
Are they just making up those numbers?
So we have, those are all kind of the statutory numbers, but then the 49 states in this country use the American Medical Association guides for impairment, except for Utah. We're better than that. And so we use the Utah guides for impairment, which essentially just pay our good, hardworking folks here less money is really what it turns out to be.
Is what it comes down to. Okay.
Because of the insurance lobby and our esteemed lawmakers who would much prefer big business and insurance than the little man. So.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay. All right. So that money comes in, and that money is that tax free except maybe for the income side?
Yeah, it's tax free. Yeah.
Oh, it's all tax free. Okay. So you just get that. And then how do you get paid out of that?
Yeah, sorry. I get paid out of that just on a contingency fee. So we keep a percentage of what we recover for our clients.
Okay, so the more they get, the more you get, essentially.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, but workers' comp cases are they're a lot smaller than like a personal injury claim, again, because the scheme for damages is so much more limited.
Yeah, and that's why you don't see workers' comp attorneys on billboards or on the side of buses, right? You see,
at
the advocates in these big personal. Are you seriously?
Well, billboards right now are incredibly cheap. You should look into it.
Really? Maybe I should. Maybe I should. Like I-15 on I-15, or.
I'll shoot you an email. Because they're based on the number of cars driving by, and there's vacancy on some of these spots. And the problem is they all want to go month to month right now. Sorry, this is a total aside. They all want to go month to month so that when this thing ends, they can jack up your rate. So I want like a 6-month rate at what they're offering right now, but they're getting some pushback on that.
Interesting. Yeah, shoot that over to me. That'd be fun. And
Yeah.
don't feel bad, because this is my conversation, so I can have whatever conversation I
Yeah.
want here.
Yeah.
Cool.
So anyway.
So I did want to ask you, since I do divorce, I did want to ask you about workers' comp and
Mhm.
divorce. So, people are during the marriage, they have this workers' comp issue, like maybe
Mhm.
the wife gets injured on the job, and then they start the divorce, or they start the divorce right after the award or something like that. how
Mhm.
how does that how does that go into the divorce, and how does that get split up? Because usually when it's income, then we
Mhm.
just use the income numbers and we calculate alimony out of the income. But is workers' comp different than that?
No, I think it is. It's just you get hurt at work and let's say the claim is accepted, and so you're on what's called temporary total disability. You're temporarily unable to work,
Mhm.
uh, and so you're getting a paycheck biweekly. And that I would say that's I, I know we can't use the term community property, but
Yeah.
marital property.
Mhm.
Um, that's marital property, and that should be used to pay alimony, child support, whatever. Where I
Mhm.
see it come up a lot as well, Marco, is my income was $8,000 a month. Now I'm capped at the statutory rate,
Yeah.
or I was working 20 hours of overtime, and that's now taken from me. And so, child support modifications, things like that, especially if you're permanently totally disabled, then it certainly. Uh, um,
Yeah, you're there. You cut out for just a second. I'm not Wait, I'm not hearing the video or the audio though.
are you there?
Is that better? Yeah, that's better.
Okay. So it says my video has stopped.
Now I can see you.
Okay. Well, my phone says safe driving mode. I don't know how that happened. I'm still sitting here. So
Okay.
hopefully you can, maybe I just can't see you. I don't know.
Can you hear me
Anyway,
though?
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
we're good. What were we saying? Um,
You were talking about child support
oh
modifications,
yeah,
permanent
yeah.
disability.
So yeah, I just referred a case over to a family law attorney, to Dave Corbett, who, essentially what had happened is my client is now permanently totally disabled,
Mhm.
and so his income is much lower than when he was ordered child to pay a certain amount of child support under the original divorce action or paternity. I can't remember.
Yeah.
And so, all of those things can certainly come into play. The money for your impairment, though, that I would say is not marital property, and there's a bunch
Exactly.
of cases on that. Certainly, like income replacement wages, I think that's all fair game. But the fact that you now have three fingers and you got paid out some money on
Mhm.
that's going to stay with the spouse who only has two fingers left on that
Yeah.
hand.
Yeah, exactly. It works the same way in personal injury, because in personal injury you have
Hmm.
loss of income, you have loss of all of these sorts of things, and then you have your actual bodily injury, and your bodily injury is
Is
yours,
yours. Hmm.
and then the rest of it is actually marital, and that can be split up. So a lot of times what we have to do, and probably with workers comp we'd have to do the same thing, is we have to go back to the attorney and say, okay, give me a breakdown of what percentages of this amount of
Hmm.
money that was paid out for bodily injury and income and special damages and all these other things.
Right. And yeah, and then obviously, unpaid medical bills, all of that, I would see affecting your divorce cases as well, where,
Mhm.
or even, an interesting one would be, if I've got a $10,000 deductible that I had to pay because workers' comp denied the case, and, you know, getting that money back into the marital estate. So any out of pocket expenses, I think, would be fair game for reimbursement or for talking about as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Interesting. I don't run into it very often, so it's nice to talk through it with
Mhm.
somebody who actually knows
Yeah,
that.
and I think you've got to. I mean, if someone's temporary total disability can only last for 312 weeks. So after that, you're either deemed to be all better,
Hmm.
you know,
Or you're just out of
or
luck.
or you're permanently totally disabled and you need to figure that out, right? So that's 312 weeks is 6 years. And so I mean, I can't imagine. Well, I'm sure there are divorce cases that go that long, but hopefully not. But you know, I think it's important for divorce practitioners to maybe understand a little bit about where the workers' comp case is,
Hmm.
uh, so that you can plan for those changes and somehow make it as self-executing as you can, so you're not having to go back and modify things after the divorce decree is entered.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very true. Yeah, it's just not something we deal with very often, so it's good to have this conversation and talk through those issues.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, I mean, that's the extent of the questions I have. Do you want to tell people where they can find you, how they get in touch with you, so you can help them out?
Yeah, sure. You can find me online in, most anywhere. UtahInjuryLawCenter.com. um, that'd be the easiest place to find us.
Hmm.
Our office is in South Jordan. Um, you know, but also this comes totally unsolicited, but Marco's been at this what, maybe 5 years longer than I have, but you've always been a good. And this is probably going to embarrass you or something, but Marco's always been a good resource for if you've got a problem or an issue with marketing, or just you have some ideas or growth or how to build a law firm, all of that. Marco's a good resource. So you know, talk to him. And the nice thing is you've always been open to me to ask those questions, which I think people will be surprised to find most attorneys are okay helping other attorneys out.
I,
Um,
I I've always found that
yeah.
attorneys are really good. There are a couple of them. Like there's I'll give the bad examples because I'm having that kind of day. But one of my attorneys in the office was in Kansas and he wanted to come back to Utah because his wife wanted to move back here.
Hmm.
So he reached out to a few Utah attorneys just to kind of talk about
Hmm.
the market out here and what he can do. So he reached out to me and I talked to him for a long time. Then he ended up working for another guy for a couple of years before he came over to me. But he always
Hmm.
remembered that conversation, was thankful about it. And then there's another divorce attorney who shall go unnamed in Utah County. He sent an email and she wrote back, "I can't give my own niece a job, so I'm not giving you one." He's like, "I didn't even ask for a job. I just wanted to talk to you for a minute about the market." Right.
Right.
He did that every once in a while, but the vast
Yeah.
majority of the time, attorneys are
Hmm.
actually really good to each other.
Yeah. If you're asking an attorney for some advice on growing your business or how to get clients or how to do marketing, and that attorney is incredible, feels threatened by you asking those questions, you don't want their advice anyway.
Yeah.
They're not. I mean, there's plenty to go around. So,
Mhm.
but if someone is incredibly threatened by you asking some simple questions, even if they do give advice, I'd probably not take it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, why don't you give people your phone number so they can
Yep,
hear it?
sure. It's 801 So give us a shout
Okay.
anytime.
Great. And thanks, Aaron. It's been great talking to you. It's good to see you. And it's been a
Yeah,
long time. I've been out of commission for like 2 months now. It feels like so.
right, right.
Can't go out to lunch, so it's good to be able to do this sort of stuff. So if
Yeah, and
anybody
yeah,
needs, oh, go
oh,
go
I'm
for it.
just saying we don't go out to lunch anymore, and yet I'm still like not losing weight, so we're all good.
All right. Well, if anybody needs help with workers' comp, Aaron Gwilliam, that's your man. And then if you need help with divorce, give us a call. It's Brown Law. It's 801-685 9999. Thanks everybody for doing this, and thank you, Aaron, for taking everybody through the process and how workers' comp gets done in Utah.
You bet. Okay. Thanks, Marco. Appreciate it.
Awesome.